Where would you rank a bug-only player on this tier list? That's incorrect. The correct answer is actually C tier. Why? Because we are currently getting invaded, that's why. Hello and welcome to the Hell Divers teammate tier list. Today, I'm going to rank every type of teammate by how much I enjoy playing with them. Let's do it. First up, and going into D tier, is the servers are full player. We've all been this player recently. Either you just bought the game after watching TikToks or seeing content and you're ready to join in the fight, or you're ready to have another play session after having a good one the day before, but you get locked out of the game in a loading screen with seemingly no end. Some players are lucky and get in easy, while others not so much and end up waiting ages. Now, we've all had to wait in the queue at one time or another, but there's some players that when they finally get into the game, all they talk about is how long they took to actually get in. Next up, and going into B tier, is the noob. With all the hype around this game, there's a ton of new players at the moment, myself included. However, this player struggles to push past some of the earlier missions. So this player is not just a noob, they're actually quite a bad noob. These players are good fun to play with because they create good content. However, some of these players do struggle to push past the first few missions easily, and they prefer to play against the bugs I've found because the bugs are a lot more linear. They're a lot more easier to play against. But whenever they try and switch the machines or the automatons, they struggle heaps. But these players are good fun, and that's the main thing, B tier. Now, on the flip side of the noob, we have the veteran going into S tier. This player has not only been playing this genre, but they've been playing Helldivers for years. For some people don't realize that Helldivers 2 is actually the game we're playing at the moment, and Helldivers has been out for many years, and these players have waited for this moment to shine. If they can manage to get on the server, which sometimes they can't, they know what to do. These players will carry the mission, tell you heaps of tips, and they're honestly heaps of fun to play with. And if you're about to lose a mission and you see that a new player is joining your lobby and reinforcements are inbound, this is the player that you want to be there. S tier. Next up, and going into D tier, is the way to prepare, the Mr. Min-Max before even getting into the game, just to die instantly. My brother, you are focusing on the wrong part of the game. This player spends way too much either looking at stuff online or organizing their character or looking at very different stats just so they can have the best chance. And sometimes it's good, but if you've got a group of 4 players that are keen to play, let's just get in there. The good part about this game is you can drop without everyone, so they can join late if they choose to, which is a good feature, but sometimes you just want to get into the battle instantly, and these players can hold everyone up. D tier. Next up, and going into A tier, is the role player. Surprisingly enough, I would have thought this would maybe go a bit lower, but I kind of thought about it for a second, and having someone that acts out if they're getting pinned down, calling out for help, is borderline professional voice actor, can actually add a bit of fun to the game. So that's why they're going in A tier, because the reality is if you're having fun, that's the main thing, and they do add a level of intensity and a level of immersion, which I really like. Sometimes these players go too far and gets a bit cringe, but most of the time, it's pretty fun and I love it. Now, I know some of you don't like getting close to combat, and that's fair enough. However, sometimes you have to. So going into C tier is the sniper only. Some players don't like getting into the fight and will keep their distance no matter what. And you know what? Fair enough. Sometimes I like switching up the play a little bit as well. However, if you're not hitting your shots and you're not helping, you're just a player sitting on the outside of the battlefield. Honestly, sniper only is really fun to play, but I think as a teammate playing with, sometimes it can add a little bit of like disconnect because you're kind of at different points in the map. But if you've got a player kind of doing Overwatch and he's saving you and stuff, that's sick. I've found most players who kind of do the sniper only have been pretty missing their shots and just staying out of the fight when they could just be in there with me. So C tier. Now, time for the first trash player to play with, which is the troll. Every game has trolls, just how it is. The first couple of times, it is pretty funny. Honestly, myself, I love to do a bit trolling as well. Calling in an orbital strike on your brand new teammate who doesn't know what he's doing can be pretty funny the first time. However, on the harder missions, you can't. You have to lock in. There's no way you're beating the missions unless all 4 players are locked in trying their hardest. It's funny at first, but maybe once or twice. Otherwise of that, it just kind of ruins the run and ruins the mission instantly. So E tier. Next up, and going into B tier, is the Miss Sorry. Friendly fire happens. It does. However, you'll know this player because they'll spend so much time apologizing. If you accidentally tap me once or twice, that's fine, it happens. Maybe they're secretly targeting you and this is their cover. However, at least they're apologetic and they make a good team environment, which is the main thing. But sometimes these players, it's like you're in the middle of combat and they're apologizing, yada, yada, yada. And you feel bad because then when I shoot them, when I shoot them by accident, it makes me feel a bit bad. However, at least they're apologizing, so B tier. Speaking of friendly fire and shooting each other by accident, we're gonna talk about the friendly fire player. E tier. This is another one of those trash players I was talking about. fight. These players may as well be a troll, but I thought I'd classify it a little different because someone who's trolling can be like very intentionally trying to lose. Friendly fire is just kind of like, are we just trying to kill each other? There's been 1 or 2 times where I've literally just got into a firefight with a teammate, and this player does way too much friendly fire to each other. And coming from Lethal Company, if you've watched on some of my stuff on my channel, there's a lot of Lethal Company, and my favorite item was the shotgun. And me and my friends, whoever got the shotgun first after the Nutcracker, would just drop the first person they saw. So transitioning to this game where we can actively friendly fire each other on the first mission instantly, this was a little difficult for us. However, if I'm on a random server with random players and I join in and everyone's tapping each other and everyone's like, you know, shooting each other a little bit, it is funny at first, but then once again, similar to troll, so E tier. Next up on this list, I've got the Xbox player. Moving on. The next player on this list is the sacrifice player. This player is willing to make the final stand and going into A tier because sometimes they do clutch up the run. Sometimes this player clutches up and draws the fire, making sure everyone gets to the ship. Sometimes they die for no reason, I won't lie. These players would be ranked higher, but I feel like sometimes, I've seen a couple funny TikToks of people just diving to the ground, everyone else in the ship's like, bro, just get on the ship. But some people love being the sacrifice, and not every mission requires a big sacrifice, but when it does, you best believe this player's there to do it. So, A tier. Next up, and going into A tier, is the machine-only fighting players. These players prefer a good gunfight and a somewhat harder difficulty, in my opinion. Most people can agree that fighting the machines over the bugs is a lot harder. Why? Because they can shoot back, and the pressure builds strongly with the Hulks and the other big machines, the tanks. It creates some really intense moments. And just when you think you're good, you hear another drop about to happen. And honestly, you just get overwhelmed. But these players, we need them. And if you fight the machines and just the machines, I bet you're going to become a great player. So, A tier. Next up, and going into B tier, is the stealth only. The Assassin's Creed, the Hitman. They only want to complete the mission with as much ease as possible. Reality is you're going to get into a gunfight. However, towards the start and on some of the lower difficulties, it is possible to do it a lot more stealthy. And don't get me wrong, going in quite stealth is quite a good strategy, especially on the bug maps. On the automated maps, it's quite difficult when you see bot drop detected and you know you're pretty much screwed and you've been, well, spotted. But at least at the start of the mission, you can be a bit stealthy and you can create a good position for yourself before the actual big firefights start. So these players are handy to have, and they do create a bit of fun especially when you're sneaking around on the earlier missions. Speaking of bot drops, next up and going into C tier is the anti-air. No bot drop can touch the ground. Honestly, it is a fabulous strategy when you think about it. And if there's something you can incorporate into your game, which is trying to get the bot drops gone before they actually land. Why? Because you just don't have to deal with the mess once they land. Reality is you're never going to deal with all of them. Some of them are going to reach the ground, but these players, they focus on the anti-air. They want to get rid of these spot drops before they even get close. And honestly, having 1 or 2 of these players is really good. However, sometimes when you got a couple of them, and I've had games where 2 or 3 of the players have only been focusing on trying to get rid of the bot drops, you kind of forget about the mission because the bot drops roll in pretty continuously. So, C tier. The final semi-bad player for this list is the grinder, D tier. This player only is playing the missions that they know they can beat. Maybe it's just playing against the bugs as quick as possible to try and level up the account and level up their status as quick as possible. And honestly, fair enough initially if you just want to get used to the game, but if you're like pushing the highest level and you're only playing against the bugs, what are you doing? You gotta help the team. We're on one big team. You forget that. You're letting the team down. So these players, I've played with them once or twice, but only when I was really starting to like play, because you don't really play with these players a lot on the later missions because they're typically playing lower difficulty. So these players are not trying to fight hard battles, they're just trying to level up quick. So D tier. Next up, and going into C tier, is the decoy master. These players make great distractions and draw the enemy away from the mission objective. Sometimes these players are just new players and noobs that don't know what they're doing and they distract everything. Hey, that ain't bad. Other times these players are intentionally distracting anyone, which is probably a bit better because it's not just like meat to the slaughter. However, these players are good because that means they're focused on the mission. Sometimes on the harder missions where the rescues become way too difficult, you kind of have to stay together. And if you kind of split up, you're kind of just going to get concentrated and you're going to end up getting taken out. So on the starter missions, these are pretty good. But on the later missions, the decoy master needs to just stay with the team. The next S tier player and the last S tier player for this list is the hero. Nobody's left behind. This player will make sure everyone is not getting overwhelmed. Half of the time, they're looking at the other players and trying to get rid of either the little bots or the little bugs catching up to people that are overwhelming. These players are the players you would want. If Helldiver was real, this is the player you'd want in your squad. They make sure the mission gets done and that everyone gets out of there as well. They're good because they keep reinforcements low, and they're good because they also focus on resources. This player is the best player to have in your team, S tier. Now, time for the final player, the leader. I've left them for last intentionally because they can either be the best player or the worst player on the team. Like real leaders, they can either be super micromanagey and telling everyone what to do and getting frustrated at everyone, when reality is they're just telling people what to do rather than actually doing it themselves. Or they can turn a good team great. And reality is, I've played with a few players that try and be leaders, because honestly, you don't need a leader. You can all kind of just do what you think's best and it will be okay. However, some players feel like they need to call the shots and call what happens. And if you've got a player that's doing that correctly and making sure everyone positions as a team and pushes and backs off and retreats when needed, these players are really good to play with. However, you have other players that they're just micromanaging everyone and it's really frustrating. So for this, I'm going to put this player in A tier because I feel like, actually I might go B tier because I feel like some leaders are good but some are bad. So we'll put in B tier, kind of lower middle, because at least they're trying the best. And that's the main thing. Now that is the official, undisputed teammate tier list for Helldivers 2. If you enjoyed this video and you want me to make more tier lists about this game or other content, let me know down below. And tell me which type of player you are, or if you disagree with this list. But let's be honest, I know you've all agreed because this is obviously the official tier list. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please subscribe and see you in the next one. Cheers.